Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our monthly pre-hospital webinar here on CPD Me. Just checking that you can see the screen okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, well, there comes some little thumbs up. Okay, so let's get into it, shall we? See, this evening's subject is refractory VF. Yeah, is it just shock, or do we have an alternative plan? Now, it's been a very interesting one to look into, actually. I've actually found a lot of data and a lot of very interesting stuff, mixed with my experience of responding in enhanced care and the things we see in the real world. So let's see where it takes us. So I guess the first question to ask is, what's the issue? Yeah, if we've got a patient who's in a shockable rhythm, as a whole, generally ventricular fibrillation, and then we spot and recognize that, something we talked about in a previous webinar about how good we are at recognizing rhythms. But we're going to be good today, and we recognize this shockable rhythm, and in a timely fashion, we deliver a defibrillation, one of the very rare evidence-based things in resuscitation. And then obviously it'd be great if that then went into a perfusing rhythm and all was good, like it does on the TV or whatever. But what if our shocks don't? It will start at maximum, which is 200 joules, and stay at that. Whereas others will do 120, 150, 200. Some will do 150, 200, 200. So basically, they're gathering all the data to determine, what is the optimal shock level for defibrillation, because we really don't know. Yeah, we don't know much about that at all. So the QR code's there if you want to have a look at the. I think it's the research proposal for the POSER study. Services and manufacturers do very different things. The Resource Council guidelines say if there's no other evidence, start from about 150 joules and escalate upwards. Or if that's not possible, go for maximum power. It's the little magazine there for the car lovers. But yeah, it does vary by manufacturer, and which varies by waveform, what type of waveform they use for their defibrillation. So it's quite unclear as to where we should be. So the POSER trial should be quite interesting, because we might find out some stuff about how we perfect our defibrillation. So why do something now? Yeah, why change something at that sort of 3 shock count? Yeah, it's because we know our sort of true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If our maximum shocks by 3 shocks, haven't done anything, then any expectation that we just keep delivering shocks and something different might happen, maybe not a likely thing to happen. So now is really the time we need to start thinking about what can we do, how can we improve it, how can we change something. And we do see, pre-hospital teams at 10, 15, 20 shocks, having changed nothing. Percent is around 8, 9, 10, depending which paper you pick up, is about the survival rate for out of hospital cardiac arrest in the UK. Anyone know what the 60% is? So 8% is the number if you're treated by an ambulance crew. I'll give you a clue. Number of arrests received CPR from a bystander. Close. That's about 7 in 10, I think now. So around 70%. Yeah. Yeah. No. So we've got to move on. So the 60% is the survival rate if you're defibrillated by a Tesco's checkout worker. Yeah. So immediate access to a AED and immediate defibrillation. Yeah. So a massive difference. And the reason this is in there, is because anything we talk about in resuscitation, we're now talking about, in niche field of refractory VF, could be someone here talking to you about other niche things in resuscitation, whatever it might be. Nothing, absolutely nothing will have the impact of, immediate defibrillation, by anyone using an AED. Yeah, in some places, someone's pointing out much higher numbers than that. I think the Amex Stadium in Brighton still has a 100% survival rate from cardiac arrest, but obviously from relatively low numbers. Airports as well, also known how to have high survival rates. Yeah, so the really important thing is, we should promote bystander CPR and defibrillation as the ultimate thing we can fix. This will give more return than anything else. If you've got £1 million to spend, buy AEDs. Yeah, but we know bystander AED use is still very low here compared to other parts of Europe. Yeah, so only about 1 in 10 out of hospital cardiac arrests in the UK receive bystander defibrillation, which is really, really low compared to other European countries. And some of that is reflective of the domestic setting. Yeah, so the percentages of cardiac arrests that happen in a domestic setting rather than in public or in a commercial premises. Yes, other supermarkets are available to have a cardiac arrest in, absolutely. We did have a case down this way where someone had a cardiac arrest in the Sainsbury's. Quite embarrassing. They had to go next door to the Tesco's to get their AED. But I think the other issue, the right picture, I've blanked out which manufacturer it is, but the right picture is a manufacturer's picture of where you should put the defib pads. And they are commonly like that. Yeah, most of the images on the pads are really quite poor. Yeah, they're quite old, and we'll see in a minute why that's important. Have the patients been put on properly? Yeah, so has the patient been shaved if they're sort of the missing link between man and ape? Was the skin dried and cleaned, or was the pad just peeling off around the edges? And we know the pad should be rolled on, yeah, to make sure there's not a big air pocket underneath them, particularly in some of the really big pads, the Zoll ones particularly, which are massive. Yeah, if you just slap the pad down on the patient, you get a big pocket of air underneath the pad. And obviously the contact bit in the middle is not then touching the patient. And people suggesting the screen is stuck. I'm not sure if that's the case. Everyone else thinks that the screen's moving. Yeah, but whatever it is, it's underneath the pad is not going to be good. Yeah, so we need good contact. And I think that's really important. Yeah, it must be people's internet. And why is that? And that's because it's about the vector, isn't it? Our aim is to deliver a shock from one pad to the other pad, and sometimes in both directions, and all sorts of weird things happen that happens by magic pixies inside the defibrillator we don't have to understand. But we know we're trying to transition this electric current through the heart, yeah, from one pad to the other. And so accepting that ignore my poor graphics and anatomical placement of the heart, I couldn't get a proper heart picture to sit there nicely. It's just a representation. You can see the difference between the two images I used last time. When you have the pads in a poor position, then a good proportion of that good electricity you're throwing in there is just going to miss the patient's heart, and then you wonder why it's not converting. What else can we do? Look at the pad quality. I've seen a lot of pads. I've been doing this a long time, and as a whole, the cheap pads are pretty nasty. Yeah, I'm sure they're CE marked, but then CE marking is a self-regulating thing. As long as you're approved to CE mark stuff, you can see CE mark stuff to make the stuff you make yourself. The quality of pads, I think, is quite important. Yeah, the really, really cheap pads have had experience of, them just barely sticking. Vaguely watering around the guidelines with no specific direction. If you look at the Resus Council stuff, it's all mentioned, or with no specific guidance about what order, when, how, etc. But there is an option. But it is a bit of a sort of drug cupboard lucky dip. It's like, what can you find? We'll give it and see if it makes a difference. We're at the point where it can't probably, make things worse, and it might give us success. But the guidance is very vague, and a lot of it's by local protocol. If we literally move, from one county to another, then one will give thrombolytics, one won't, etc. So, but it's there as an option. Yeah, stack shocks is mentioned in the Resus Council. Yeah, although it's mentioned in the Resource Council for, witness cardiac arrest, to give 3 shocks, one after another. But is it an option for later on? Well, possibly. Yeah, I think when you get to the point where you've delivered lots of shocks and you need to change stuff, it might be an option again. Not guided for refractory VF, but something to think about. A lot of stuff I can see going on in the chat about, dual sequential defibrillation, the much famed dual sequential defibrillation, much talked about and increasingly studied about using 2 defibrillators currently. And in the future, that might be 1 with 2 sets of pads attached to it, but 2 defibrillators attached to a patient and delivering these sort of sequential shocks, a shock immediately followed by another shock, not simultaneous, sequential. The QR code there will take you to the study someone mentioned in the thing, which is chat box there. Someone did bring it up. Yeah, Chesks et al. The New England. Thanks, Chris, for that one. But that's the QR code will take you to that. And that's very enlightening. Yeah, too big a topic for this presentation alone. ILCOR and Resource Council have both acknowledged the study and said they're watching it very closely because it seemed to be very, very successful. So they've acknowledged that there might be something going on here that we need to pay attention to, and they're watching that intensely. Success rates seem to be very meaningful. I think somewhere around the sort of 17%, higher success rate. So maybe defibrillation will all be this way one day. This probably reflects the recent change in JR Calc from 20 to 30 minutes of resuscitation. That there is survival above 20 minutes. I think we've always seen that, but by the time you get to 30 and then pushing 35 minutes, and most of the patients that, we say we do 30 minutes on, we've generally done 35, 40, 45 minutes. But if they're still in VF at that point, if you're at that line, we know survival is, very, very unlikely. Particularly if we've done all the things we've talked about and that's got us nowhere. Yeah, then, what is the value of transporting this patient, particularly if we don't have mechanical CPR, or we have to massively compromise resuscitation to get them out of the house. Either got to be carried down the stairs and no one can do chest compressions on them during that period. Then, I think that's a question we have to consider and something you have to take to sort of senior medical advice. Yeah, so whatever your medical advisor is, whatever system you have in your, in your system to contact senior medical advice. I think you've probably got to present your case and go, we've been resuscitating for 35, 40, 45 minutes. Patient is still in VF, we're still delivering shocks. We've done this, and this. We have no other options available, and see what they think, because we know at that point there probably is, little benefit.